On 30th December 2019, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Twitter handle was used to share a video by Godman Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev as part of a social media push #India supports CAA or the Citizen Amendment Act. But the fact is that Sadhguru's 22-minute long video is misleading to say the least. And here's how. The video talks initially about partition, religious persecution practiced by other countries. So we feel compassion for Hindu minorities in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, and then Sadhguru says he is amazed at the hard-hearted reaction of the anti-CAA protesters. But here's the point, Sadhguruji. Those protesting against the CAA are not against offering citizenship to Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, Christians and Parsis from Afghanistan, Bangladesh and Pakistan. They are asking, why have persecuted Muslim minorities been left out? But you have not answered that question in your video. The protesters are also asking, why have certain other neighbors been left out? And you haven't answered those questions either. So I'll ask those key questions again. Why did the government, and now Jaggi Vasudev also, conveniently forget that Ahmadiyya Muslims and Shia Muslims are persecuted religious minorities in Pakistan? Why has it been forgotten that the Hazara Muslims are a persecuted religious minority in Afghanistan? And why aren't Myanmar and China being counted as neighbors? We share borders with both these countries. The Rohingyas are persecuted in Myanmar, the Uyghur Muslims are persecuted in China. These are very valid questions that anti-CAA protesters have been raising, but neither the government nor Jaggi Vasudev have answered these questions. Why? Simple answer. The intention of the CAA is to keep Muslims out. You often repeat in your video that India is secular, but how are we secular when the CAA practically says Muslims not allowed? In fact, Sadhguruji, protesters have even questioned, why is CAA looking only at religious persecution? Why not economic refugees? Why should India not accept climate refugees? We must, right? As a responsible nation. But again, CAA is silent on that. Why? By design, Guruji, because that would mean accepting Muslim refugees from Bangladesh who've crossed into India for years due to sheer poverty, chronic floods, and more recently due to climate change. Jaggi Vasudev also claims there has been an attempt to mislead minorities in India into thinking their citizenship is under threat. But Sadhguru, these fears are real. There is no attempt to mislead. The fact is that CAA and NRC can specifically harm India's Muslims when imposed together. Here's how. If a poor Muslim and a poor Hindu from Bengal have both lost their proof of birth documents, say in a flood, the Hindu can claim to be a persecuted refugee. The Muslim cannot. The Muslim would then be stripped of citizenship rights, especially voting rights, and sent off to a detention center and forgotten. All we have from the government and from BJP spokespersons on TV channels are assurances that this will not happen. But there is nothing in the law books to guarantee it. You say mischief makers are misinforming the protesters. Rajmohan Gandhi has called the CAA unquestionably un-Indian. Tell us, does Gandhiji's grandson, an intellectual, have a hidden agenda? Sadhguruji, the CAA and NRC plan seen together is clearly anti-Muslim. You enjoy the reverence of a vast number of Indians of all denominations. And I sincerely say, don't get played. Visit Delhi's Shaheen Bagh. Hear the protesters singing the national anthem. Hear the clarity of their objections, and you will not call them illiterate again. Examining your video further, you say that people opposing the CAA realized that the act was fine and so changed their stance to ask why police was entering universities. That again is misleading. Yes, anti-CAA protests are questioning police violence in universities, but all protesters continue to oppose the CAA also. In fact, the anti-Muslim objective of the CAA is underlined by the targeted police response. Maximum police aggression has been seen in Muslim-dominated universities like Delhi's Jamia Millia Islamia and Aligarh Muslim University, whereas protests have taken place in campuses from across the nation, in IIMs, in IITs, medical colleges, engineering colleges across the nation. Jaggi Vasudev's video also conveniently ignores the violence against protesting public, especially in UP, where at least 20 people have been killed. There are verified videos of policemen in UP themselves damaging property, themselves destroying CCTV cameras, policemen in UP seen and heard telling Muslims to go back to Pakistan. But Jaggi Vasudev ignores this, and we are left wondering why. Even a former UP police chief, Vikram Singh, has called out the UP police for what he describes as vindictive actions, but not Jaggi Vasudev's video. Jaggi Vasudev also questions those who argue that it will be difficult to produce proof of birth documents. Please note, Guruji, Aadhaar cards, ration cards cannot be used to prove citizenship. Only birth certificates are conclusive. If you were born before 1987, for everyone else, you need to prove the citizenship of at least one parent. Have India's privileged few realized how difficult and demeaning this process will be for India's poor, for India's underprivileged, for India's women, for India's scheduled castes and scheduled tribes? Nobel Prize winner Abhijit Banerjee has worked for years with India's poorest and weakest. He explains why they will struggle to find such proof. Read what he has to say before laughing at these people as you have in your video. We have seen the hardships caused by the Assam NRC. Can Jaggi Vasudev even imagine what chaos will follow if an Assam-style NRC is imposed on the whole nation? Finally, Sadhguru concludes claiming that the only problem here is the government's failure to communicate properly about CAA and NRC. Sorry, we disagree again. Because in fact, in multiple statements, Home Minister Amit Shah has spelled out very clearly the exact nature of CAA. He has repeatedly promised that NRC will follow the CAA in Parliament and outside it.
NRC की प्रक्रिया देश भर में होगी, उस वक्त आसाम के अंदर भी ये NRC की प्रक्रिया स्वाभाविक रूप से फिर से की जाएगी। पहले CAA भी होगा, सिटीजनशिप अमेंडमेंट बिल आएगा, सारे रिफ्यूजी को, सारे शरणार्थियों को नागरिकता दिया जाएगा, उसके बाद में NRC बनेगा।
And it is this clarity, in fact, that has brought people onto the streets, Guruji, in protest. People of all ages, of all communities. Many, I'm sure, are even those who revere you. Ye jo India hai na, it can sense that its future is at stake. Join those many youngsters on the street, Guruji. I'm sure you'll see the point they are making.